Lovely to meet you.
My pleasure.
I've got so much to ask you, and I wanted to start off with your idea for the production. So the first question, your idea, your direction in the film. I would like to know that first, and then we can go into Elliot afterwards.
My direction in the film.
Yes. What was your, let's just say, what were you trying to achieve
Okay.
for the audience?
Okay.
The message.
Okay. Sure. Well, for me, it was message. Well, for me, what I was interested in, I was interested in the Blitz. I was interested in this foundation, this event, which has shaped our national psyche in a way of who we are. It's one of the sort of pillars of who we are, or we sort of measure ourselves by, Blitz and Blitz spirit. And I was interested in digging into that. I was interested in looking at what that was through a child's perspective. And I just was doing some research on small acts, and I came across this photograph of this young child, this black child, who obviously had, one of his parents were white, one of his parents were black, and he was being evacuated. And I just thought to myself, what's his story? And that, for me, was a way in to that landscape of the Blitz during 1940-41.
So that was the beginning of the choice of Elliot for your film, for the Blitz.
Yes.
And his experience, his unique experience, I would say, because when I watched the film, I've got to say, sorry, I loved the film.
Great, good.
I
good.
did.
Yeah,
I did.
Fantastic.
Not that I was not expecting to like it anyway, but it was the depth and the message, the emotion, everything I felt in that film. It came all at once.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, Elliot was again. I mean, to search again, when you write something like that, then you've got to think, who is that person? Oh my God, does George exist? So we threw our net, broad and wide in auditions to find out who we could get to play that role. Again, I mean, got anyone to come in, and I didn't know at the time when I saw a tape of Elliot. He had never acted before. He was 8 years old when he auditioned, and it was beautiful. There was a real stillness to him. I thought that kid could be it. He had a real magnetism. And he looked at his face this way, looked at his face that way, and he held your gaze. And I thought that could be him. And then obviously we worked with him, and that was it, because he never acted before.
So, sorry. Were you trying to explore Black experiences within the war? Would you say the lost stories? Because, for instance, there's many Black people who were in the war, fought in the war, who were just as important as everybody else in the country, and as equal when it came down to the fight. So, were you trying to explore those stories for those people that are unrepresented, and how? Yeah, sorry.
Well, not really. I didn't really care about that. No, not really, because in some ways I was interested in the truth more than anything else. Again, I wasn't trying to sort of steer any kind of particular focus, but with what I found, there was lots of things which was kind of evident with the makeup of London. The sort of the sort of again, as I was just saying before, my historical sort of advisor, Justin Levine, was said the sort of multiculturalism or the cosmopolitanness of London. Through that research, you saw large Chinese communities, Black communities, all kinds of Asian communities, which were there. So again, I feel that. Yes, my in was the child, that photograph, and to build his world, what his world was, who his granddad was, who his mother was, who his father was. But through his experience, I wanted to experience London. And by that, you saw people of different sort of backgrounds.
I saw there was an element of community within those spaces. And I felt that was very interesting. And the character that, reached out, well, I felt the most through the film was Effie, or
Ife. Yeah, that's okay.
Yes, sorry, I do apologise. I found his character quite interesting because not only was he able to navigate George's identity and help him understand and explore that, but not only that, it was what he represented. He was an immigrant himself, but he was able to relate to the British culture just as much as the next person who was also suffering. And I wanted to, understand why he was quite an important character for your story.
Well, I think what's interesting about Ife, he's based on a guy called Ite Epion, who, again, his background was he was a law student. When war broke out, he became an airway warden. For me, what is interesting about that character is that he's a loyalist. He's really, he's a patriot. He's one of those people he is for Queen and country. But unfortunately, when he comes here, there's a barrage of racist abuse and again slurs and whatnot against him. But he still believes in a bigger cause. And of course, when George meets him, he is he's one of the few people, black men I imagine he's met, who has a sense of as a standing of authority, and he learns a little bit about himself through him. So that was the idea, really, of George, again, because George unfortunately didn't grow up with his father. Something happened to his father, which people see the movie, they find out what happened. So to him, having this kind of figurehead was very important for him. I wanted him to have this sort of, black male figurehead who he could sort of relate to, really.
Definitely. And even I found his mother's position in the film very interesting as well. And her strength, and also finally women had a bit more of a voice and representation as well. And how was that navigating through not only the choice of the actresses you used, but their message, what they stood for, and not only that, even the attention to detail, reminding us women just getting dressed up for a night, and they was wearing, using a pencil to draw the back of the stockings. And I found that very interesting, that you remembered every single detail of not only their emotion, but the behaviour.
Well, I think what was interesting for me about the women during the war is that how underrepresented they were. I mean, again, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about a truth, and these women working at ammunition factories, and that's what happened. So when you go into the research, you just find these things. And again, I mean, just finding out that, Hitler didn't like red lipstick, so that's why a lot of women wore red lipstick, didn't like makeup. So a lot of, British women at the time wore red lipstick, or again, they're defying the situation. Rather than making do, they reconfirm their humanity through their sexuality. So if it's a pencil on the back of their legs or wearing a particular kind of outfit, it was about being human in the deluge of war. Yeah, and the women were extraordinary, like I said before. They, again, they were the backbone of the country, emotionally and physically.
And I did find that very interesting, and it made me think. I'm probably thinking about all the things you didn't think of, to be fair, because I wanted to know, is this a message? Not just a message, but as I watched the film and I understood every moment of how the characters were feeling and also their experiences, do you feel as if we've lost the sense of community?
I don't. I don't know if we've lost a sense of community, but I think a lot of things are under attack. I mean, just like a few days ago, there was fascists, marching in central London, and and the recent sort of race riots in September. I think that but it sort of in some ways, unfortunately, reflects that time in a way. And I feel the film more than any time ever. I think the film is kind of urgent because it looks at what was going on then, and there's a comparison, obviously. And I suppose how far we moved on from there. I don't necessarily think we've lost the idea of community, but it's definitely under attack. That's for sure.
And where would you see yourself go? Where do you see yourself going forward in later productions, or where do you, after the film's released, how do you feel you are in your career and where you're going forward?
I don't know. I mean, again, after this I think I want to take a break. That's for sure. I'm doing some research on some other things, and again, you move on. Again, I think that, but I do feel that this is a sort of end, is a bookend in a way to something. I very much do. I mean, after I did an exhibition called Year 3 and Small Acts, And Blitz, it's kind of like becomes like a bookend to something. Looking back, looking back to look forward is very interesting in a way what I've done. But again, I think there's a chapter that's been done now in a way. But the fact that this film feels so urgent. That's exciting in a way that I could, as an artist, one feels that you could contribute to something which is going on now. That it can actually act as some kind of conversation piece as to where we are now.
And as a younger person as well, I would say I'm very
thank you.
Honest. Yeah, you know how I feel then.
Go on.
But I would say you're able to translate what you're trying to achieve, what you're showing us, what your work is to a young audience, and it still hits home. It hit home for myself as well.
I'm very happy about that.
Honestly, and that's
cool. I'm hip.
Yeah.
Tell my son that.
I will. But no, I thank you very much for your time, and it was lovely meeting you.
Great. This is your first interview, apparently.
Yes.
Fantastic one. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Well done, mate.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant.